Hello, you're welcome to Africansonchina. Today we are on our monthly series where we talk about issues in the space, investment, business, anything in the Africa-China space that is of interest to you, our viewers, and our audience out there, especially those who visit our website to read our stories. So this is specifically for you guys to help you get to know what's in the space and the benefits and opportunities you can get from the African China space. Today with me is my colleague, co-founder of Africans on China, Sylvestor Demuyakor, and he's an African China business consultant, business and language consultant. So people who are interested in talking about Chinese and African business, he's the right person to talk to, and he's also very fluent in the Chinese language, and he will be able to play that bridge role for you. So today we're going to talk about investment in the Africa-China space. So I would allow Sylvester to give a brief about himself, and then we'll get straight to the topic, and then we digest. So, Sylvester, you're welcome.
Thank you, Clifford. And it's really, really exciting to have this conversation today. I know we've been planning about it a couple of times, and it's always exciting to get opportunity to share our perspectives as Africans on the Africa-China relations. I think that's one of the things Africans on China as an organization seeks to achieve, to amplify the African voice on China's presence on the continent. So conversations like this always excite me, and I see them as opportunity. In terms of introduction, I think we've done it all already. My name, what I do, and yeah, basically that's it. So I'm Manasseh, I'm Sylvester, I'm Demuyakor.
Alright, so my name is Sylvester Demuyakor. Alright, so today the topic, what we are talking about is, as I said, investment in the African China space. But that's a broad
Mhm.
topic. So
Yeah.
the key theme for this discussion is navigating the China-Africa investment landscape. That is the key theme for this. But we'll be talking about opportunities arising in the Africa-China space. If you want to invest, if you want to venture into business in that space, if you are looking to partner or do business with Chinese or Africans in that space. So, what are the opportunities for you, and what can you get? So, to start, I would want to Sylvester, what is your
Yeah.
take on the African China space, business opportunities and investment in the African China space?
Okay. Yeah. Once again, it's really exciting to have these conversations. Talking about opportunities in the space, I think we actually have a whole article on our website, which talks about I think 20 business opportunities that Africans can consider with China and in China. If there is anyone interested, I think they can check it out on our website. We published it, I think, some few years ago. Really very insightful, I mean, informative, and yeah, it shows it seeks to give Africans an idea of what they can do. So as for the opportunities, there are a lot of them available. There are lots in the space, and we are talking about business, right? Because we have education opportunities, we have um, tourism opportunities, we have all of that. But today, I think we are talking about business. And so, um, what are they? I think there are a lot of them, and we might want to zoom into them specifically. But business wise, we have investments, we have trade, right? These especially the trade aspect, I think that is the main area of opportunity when it comes to the Africa-China relations, because that is what has dominated the relations for the past 10, 20 years. Africa-China relations without trade is almost like no relations at all, even though we have the people-to-people relations. So yeah, the trade opportunity is huge, where we see people importing a lot from China. Currently, as we speak, Africa has exported over $200 billion worth of goods from China. that based on current statistics, and that is huge. When you talk about the reverse, it's woefully insignificant because we import more than we export to China, and that is where some of us have a concern. How do we bridge that gap? How do we make sure that it becomes balanced, right? How do we get more exports into China than the imports? But yeah, the opportunity, one of the biggest opportunities is the trade. People day in, day out import different stuff from China. You go to Ghana's largest markets, you go to Makola markets, you go to Agbogbloship markets, and majority of the things you see here are Chinese products, right? So yeah, this that's for me is one of the biggest opportunity. If you want us to look at investments, I think we can look at that later on.
All right. So just on that line, I was coming to ask in relation to that, but you already said something on that. So
Hmm.
if you could take it further, apart from trade, or when you're even looking at trade,
Hmm.
what sectors could we be saying in the next 5 to 10 years would be the most intense areas that China-African relations or business relations can be centered on? So, what would the
Okay.
top ones that African-China business relations would be on or involvement would be in about?
Hmm. Okay. So I guess you are talking about what five key areas that Africans should look at in the next 10 years when it comes to Africa-China business and investment. For me, number one is definitely trade, right? And when we talk about trade, everything about trade, because we literally need everything from China. And that is sometimes it scares me because the fact that we need to import everything from China for me is a worry. What happens when the trade routes are affected by even natural happenings, or wars and different things, geopolitical tensions? What happens? Trade is definitely one of the biggest areas to look out for. It has been and will continue to be one of the hotspots of Africa-China relations and business and investment area. Because, like I said, China, we keep importing more and more from China. Currently, we are talking about 200 billion, a little over 200 billion. So fast-moving consumer goods, even car tires, right? Electronics, we now have a lot of those Chinese products in the market. I use some of them as well. Um, yeah, different TV brands, different air condition brands are all there. So yeah, these are some of the things. Clothing, right? People import a lot of them. And when we talk about clothing, different type of clothing products, curtains and all of that, even furniture. We import furniture from China. So this will continue to dominate the trade, the importation of items from China. And when we are talking about export aspect, it will continue to be dominated by the raw materials. Currently, as we speak, one of the products that I think the Chinese need more is cashew. I think there are a lot of people exporting more of cashew to China. And then we have cassava. Yeah, definitely the crude oil will continue to dominate bauxite, iron, and all of that. Yes, people will continue to export, they will continue to need those ones. But I am passionate about the agriculture aspect of it. So that's why through my research and my personal experience, I think people are now also exporting cashew, um, of course, cocoa. And yeah, these things will continue to be very valuable and valid for the next 5 to 10 years. And then agriculture, I mentioned trade. Trade is almost like all encompassing, right? So there's agriculture and trade because we will export the agricultural products to them, even though not in their finished goods. There's another aspect of it is the green energy. Yeah, green energy, and then the new trend in the Chinese investment in Africa. I mean, private investments in Africa. which is manufacturing. I don't know if there is time to delve deeper into that, but these for me are probably the top four areas, if you like: trade, agriculture, green energy, and then manufacturing. This for me are the four core areas that people can look at in terms of investment and trade.
All right, that's well noted. So, I would just want to also find out. Looking at China and Africa, you could see that the Belt and Road Initiative is a major driver, one of the boosters of relationship between the two sides. So, what opportunities do you think African businesses can get, or Chinese business can get, as a result of the Belt and Road Initiative? What could they leverage on? Are there opportunities that they could leverage on in that area to expand or grow businesses in the space?
Yeah, Belt and Road. I mean, it's one of the very uh, the top policies of Beijing since President Xi Jinping came into office since 2013. The Belt and Road, for those who are not aware, is simply one of the policy projects that China seeks to use to connect the world, through the Middle East, I think parts of America, maybe parts of Africa. But it allows countries to sign up and to join. This is just to give a brief background of it. Currently, I think we are talking about 150 members, part of the Belt and Road Initiative, who have signed contracts with China. It's basically an infrastructure kind of policy. So you sign up onto it, and you get the Chinese government supports you with some loans to construct your ports. We know about the famous or the infamous Sri Lanka issue, right? Djibouti issues, and yeah, which seeks to kind of strengthen the debt trap issue. So that is the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, what are the opportunities for Africans? I've thought about it several times, and it looks like Beijing controls what happens with these projects, right? So there is a list that African businessmen can do to take advantage. But of course, even in the midst of this scarcity of opportunities in the Belt and Road, I still think that one of the things Africans can do is to partner with Chinese companies to take up some of the Belt and Road projects. You know, um, I don't know about uh, any Belt and Road project in Ghana. We've had a lot of projects in the that China has. We have the Sino Hydro project. I don't know whether it is part of the, which is, I think, the $2 billion Sino Hydro project. I don't know whether it is part of the Belt and Road Initiative. But this is the example I'm giving. Like Ghanaian, let's say, construction companies can team up with Chinese companies to take Belt and Road projects, to construct roads if they have the capacity. And that is one of the issues, because before you can partner with the Chinese, you will need to show your value, value for money. And then the other thing that I think Africans can also look at is to look at this connectivity, the connected routes, right? The infrastructure, being it by land, by sea, by air. Ghanaians can look at how they can get their products to be traded in those countries. So, for instance, if, let's say, there's a Belt and Road Initiative that has led to the construction of a road through to Nigeria or through to Kenya or any other African country, and then now we have the AFCFTA, so Africans can take advantage of such connected infrastructure to trade with other countries. So these are maybe the two ways that I think Africans can take advantage of the Belt and Road Initiative. One is trying to see if they can partner with Chinese companies to take up Belt and Road construction projects. Number two is to see how best they can trade through the connected infrastructure that Beijing has supported Africans to build. across the continent.
All right, all right, all right. That's very deep, and thank you so much for that. And I would also want to find out, are you, if you've noticed, China has been involved in the construction of uh, business hubs, or let's say hubs that at least people can set up businesses. And if you look at Ethiopia, for instance, they are actually taking advantage of those things, and they are establishing a lot of hubs that people, industrial hubs that people can come into. The infrastructure is already there. They'll be able to set up their businesses and all those things. Uh, what do you think other African countries can do to follow the Ethiopian example to get this Chinese support to also start these hubs in their countries so that business can take advantage of?
Yeah, look, and I think it's a very important point that you just made, a very interesting area to discuss, and that is the new trend of the Africa-China relations, and which I was planning to touch on. And that is Chinese private investors, businessmen are now moving away from the traditional importation of the trade. They import the stuff, put it in their warehouses, they retail them, even though they are not supposed to retail in, especially like countries like Ghana. Foreigners are not supposed to retail, they're supposed they can only wholesale, right? So typically they will bring these goods in and then wholesale them. Those who are very stubborn will retail some of them, right? But gradually I've realized that the trend is evolving, is changing. Chinese investors are now looking to move their production lines to Africa, and that is where you will see the industrial hubs that you just spoke about in Ethiopia, right?
Yeah.
Now, typically, these industrial hubs are supposed to be pioneered by the local governments. It's the local government that says that, look, we now want to set up industrial, we typically call them free trade zone areas. We want to set them up. This is the location. We want to invite and woo in Chinese, foreign manufacturers and production lines to come and set up here. And if you bring your production line, you can benefit from some tariff free, policies here and there. Now, it will excite you to know that Ghana currently has this policy running, being led by the Ghana Free Zones Authority, right? I had the opportunity of visiting there to inquire about some of their services and what they are currently doing to woo in investors. And it's really interesting that they are very proactive. Now here in Ghana also we have the Effienya industrial zones. Now we have Chinese people setting up their own industrial zones as well in the space in that area. So we have the greenhouse free zones area also, which is mainly occupied by Chinese manufacturers and the investors. So just like Ethiopia, I think the Ghana Free Zones Authority is trying to emulate it, even though it looks like the Chinese themselves are building the free zones infrastructure, the warehouses, the manufacturing, spaces, and making their own people to occupy them, right? Which I think shouldn't be the case. We should build those infrastructure, the manufacturing hubs, and then they'll come and rent them, right? So that at least we get to retain some of the monies here. But yeah, just like Ethiopia and Ghana, I think other African countries should follow suit, because the Chinese are now ready to move their production lines to Africa, partly because labor is becoming expensive in China. And of course, it's always important to move closer to the source of where the money is than to always import, which is always becoming very expensive. So one African government should try and set up some of these free zone areas, trade areas, and invite these Chinese investors. And for me, most importantly, Ghanaian businessmen should position themselves to partner with these Chinese investors. If we have time next time, we could talk about how China actually did the magic with their own, industrialization. simply one of the things they did was to invite foreign companies, position them at specific places. They had specific industrial or trade zone areas in China where you set up and then you produce and then you can export and all of that. That is one of the things China did, which Africa can also do. Yeah. So yes, policies that are very convenient to the investors, to the foreign investors, set up the free zone areas, the trade hubs, the industrial hubs, and let them come in. I think is the way to go.
All right, all right. That's very true. Mostly, if the environment is made ready or fertile for people to come in, coming in would always be easy. And
Yeah.
I'm also, based on the research, I've find that at least Chinese are also now interested in local partnership. So they are
Mhm.
looking at people in Africa that we can start relationship with, we can start business with. They can be our partners here, though they might not be able to move their production to Africa immediately. But they are looking at people who are in Africa and are ready to handle large quantities of what they are doing. So they could be either suppliers, main suppliers for African region, or they could be playing a role in getting the Chinese what they produce in China to Africa. But moving away from that, you could see that the African population and Chinese population, when you are looking at the statistics, the African one is more youthful, and you could see that the potential of African population has not yet been fully utilized. So people are now starting businesses. Young Africans are starting businesses, trying to start companies and trying to learn from what the other places, other people have done, the US, the Europeans, and the Chinese have done. So, what do you think these startups can do to attract investment from Chinese? Uh, since the Chinese might not be able to come and start business directly in China, in Africa due to one or two reasons, regulations or other things. What do you think the African can do to attract the cash from China, if not the physical people coming from China? What can we do to attract the cash coming in from China to support these African startups?
Yeah. Yes. I think you are bringing up topics that I'm very passionate about. Startups is a heartbeat for me. Entrepreneurship is a heartbeat for me. But even before I go to that, let me just be quick to give some information about these partnerships that we think are important between Africans and Chinese, right? And in fact, there are some policies, there are some measures, some arrangements that have been made either mostly from the Chinese side to intentionally induce partnership between Africans. Now, one of them is the China Africa Development Fund. There is a fund that has specially been arranged by the Chinese government to foster relations, partnership, business and investment partnership among Chinese and Africans. Now, the fund requires a certain composition of Africans and a certain composition of Chinese before the fund can be acquired. So if you want to access such a fund, then you will need, I think, 30% of African involvement and maybe 70%. I will need to check the figures. But this is the type of arrangement that is available. They have their headquarters in here in Accra. Sunon Asogle Power Company, the power producing company here in Ghana, is actually one of the the projects that was started through a partnership between Chinese and African and Ghanaian, right? The African World Airline is actually also one of it. So as you can see, there are actually opportunities, there are platforms that can help or that should help Africans to partner with Chinese conveniently and sustainably. Having said that, let's go into the startup issue, right? It's very important. It's a very important question. How do we get more Chinese investors investing in African startups? I think that is one of the areas that African governments should start looking at. Of course, we have some projects like the Jack Ma Africa Business Heroes project that has been running, I think, for the past 3 or 4 years, which seeks to support African startups with cash, right, and capacity building to help them grow, become successful and more impactful. I know about that, which is running. I also know about some Transsion, I think it's called Transsion or Transsion,
Yeah,
which is the mobile telecommunications company in China.
yeah.
Also has some startup arrangements, a startup fund, a startup pitch competitions for Africans. Yeah, that Africans can take advantage of now. But how do we get more of that, right? How can African startups position themselves? Number one, I think that African startups should venture into sustainable projects, right? The Chinese are very careful about where they put their monies, right? So the African startups should be able to demonstrate the sustainability of their businesses, you know, and there must be that uniqueness because 1.4 billion Chinese people for the past 40 years have been doing a lot. And so if you are starting up a project that you seek to invite investments, then it has to be unique, So apart from sustainability, it has to also be unique. But one of the major challenges is language barrier. I've always said this. When it comes to getting Chinese to invest or to partner with Africans, one of the biggest challenges is the language. Unlike the Europeans and the Americans that speak English, and Ghana being an English-speaking country, it becomes easy for its people to relate with these investments or investors from this area. So I also believe that African startups should seek advice and consult people who are in the space, right, in the Africa-China space, and especially people who understand the Chinese and how they work and who have the language ability. They should also be able to work with such people and get to understand what these Chinese investors are looking for. I think these are some of the things, and also honesty, because you don't want to start a project that you yourself know that, look, this is not sustainable and I'm not going to make anything, but you want people to invest in it. Once they find out, they wouldn't even come again, they wouldn't come at all, right? So I think it's just basic things, make sure that your project is sustainable. Who doesn't like money? Come up with a genuine project, sustainable. Come look for some of us. Let's team up and invite Chinese investors. Let us demonstrate to them the potential of the projects you are having that you are running in Africa, and I'm sure they'll be running to come around. So yeah, sustainability, uniqueness is key, truthfulness, and all of those things.
All right. So sustainability and uniqueness. If you want to get the Chinese money, you should get
Yes,
a sustainable business idea and something that's
yes,
unique. When you say it's
yes.
unique, it doesn't necessarily mean to be an out of box idea, but
No,
something that's
yeah.
innovative. Because Chinese, if you look at them, they are not who sleep. They are who
Mm-hmm.
innovate. They think and think and think over again to bring solutions.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you want to attract investment from them, you should be able to live up to their standards, if not go beyond their standards. We have just some few minutes to
yeah.
go, so I would like to take your final remarks. It's been a wonderful time having you, though. So, what are your final remarks? And though I was wishing we could have more time, but we have to go. So, your final remarks, please.
Mm. Yeah, Clifford. Yeah, you prefer to be called Latin Ghana. I think these conversations are very important. Conversations that seek to inform, to educate, to connect, to advise and sisters who are ready and interested in doing business with Chinese to take advantage. So I will just want to sign off by saying that let's continue with such conversations, and there's a need for intentionality. If our African governments are not taking their initiative of propelling and helping Africans to take advantage of China's presence on the continent, then it might take individuals like us to do that. So I think that we need to continue with this type of conversations, and I hope the Africans on China project will continue to be valuable to Africans.
All right. definitely the Africans on China project will definitely continue to be very valuable to Africans and Chinese and those in the space, everyone in the space. So thank you once again for your appearance on today's segment. This was supposed to come in January though, but due to some one or two issues, we couldn't have it in January, and we're having it in February now. But that does not change what we've planned for February. So we are focusing the month of February on startups. So we will be talking about startups. We'll be sharing more information, research articles on startups and the African China space, how you can advance your startup in the space and the opportunities available for you. Already we have some content on our website that are talking about startups, so you could take a read from there as you await for fresh and new content on that. So you could visit our website that's displayed on the screen, www.africansonchina.com. And you can also follow us on social media, Africans on China on Instagram and Facebook, and we're also live on Twitter. So you can join us on Twitter or X on Africans on China. So the name is the same, and we are live everywhere. So thank you once again for making the date with us, and see you next time. Bye.